Hi everybody, this is the 1K Q&A video that I said I'd do. I've actually got quite a few good questions that have been asked on the community tab, which is amazing. But before I get to that, first of all, there's two things that I want to just go over. The winner of the Eye of the Tiger giveaway, that sealed Blu-ray of Signal One's release of Eye of the Tiger starring Gary Busey. The question was, what year was DVD introduced into the West? And what their favourite film was. The first person to answer that question was Johnny Carrot Heed. So congratulations, Johnny. The Blu-ray will be on its way to you as soon as you see this video. It's on the way to you, and congratulations. There will be another giveaway soon, and hope you all enter and maybe win yourself a DVD or a Blu-ray. And the second thing is, I have said the reason I like a library is because I like to hold the product. But considering the amount of movies that I own and the fact that I do have to leave this house at some point during this year, it's going to be mighty impossible to transport all of the films. And I've done one thing that I swore I would never do. I've condensed them. I have had to resort to condensing the movies down into a binder. As you can see, this is I don't know how many, I haven't really counted, but this is basically a full shelf, I guess, altogether. Yeah, I've had to condense them into folders basically for transport and just to save a bit of room. Most of these are films that I either have on DVD or have on Blu-ray that aren't really worth anything if you sell them. Like the first one is Heat. I've got the Blu-ray, but I like to keep the 2 discs. So yeah, that's the one thing I said I would never do. I have actually done. I apologise, but yeah, I have condensed movies into a folder. I have ordered another 2 of these binders. These are great. These are only £5.19 on Amazon. These aren't in any form of alphabetical order, which I will be changing when I start to do more. So yeah, like I said, I've ordered 2 more binders to transfer the movies into to make life a lot easier. So Q&A time, 1K Q&A. It's cool that rhymes. You might like to know that tonight I do not have a Pepsi break. I have a high quality H2O break, courtesy of my taps. So yeah, we've got quite a few questions, some really good ones as well. So I'm going to kick it off with a question from @Mozzie7987. They ask, if movies didn't exist, what would be the next best form of media for me? That's a good question. That's a really, really good question. I'd probably say if movies didn't exist, or if physical discs like Blu-rays and DVDs didn't exist, the next thing, the most important thing to me then would probably be music. I am a very, very, very big music fan. I have a sort of CD collection. It's not huge. I did get rid of quite a lot a few years back when Spotify came out, but I found myself in the last 2 to 3 years or so buying up more and more because my tastes in music have kind of broadened and become less specific to one genre. I can't live without music. I have to listen to music at least once or twice a day. Today I was listening to Spotify through my television because I couldn't find the remote control for my hi-fi, which was annoying because for some reason the front button on the hi-fi doesn't work. It's one of those all-in-one kind of... It's got a record player, a sort of amp, I guess, a 5-disc CD changer and 2 tape decks, all in one. So yeah, that's what I tend to listen to music on in a living room or in the dining room when I'm tidying or when I'm cooking or something like that. But music is my second big love. I love lots of kinds of music. So my favorite genre of music is punk rock. So bands like, I know a lot of people would say they're not technically punk, but my favorite band of all time is Green Day. They have been since I was about 13 years old. The first time I heard Dookie blew my mind. I'd never heard anything like it. But then there's bands like Rancid and Pennywise, NoFX, and then there's ska bands like like the two-tone British ska bands. Like I think it was the Specials, and like bands like the Specials, but then the third wave ska revival. So bands like Sublime and Real Big Fish, the Mad Candies. These are the bands that I grew up listening to when I was a teenager, when I was a skinny little skater boy. Now I'm just a chubby nerd who likes movies too much. But I also love film music. Film music for me is like the greatest form of music. It's recognizable. It's iconic. John Williams is my number one listened to artist on Spotify for 3 years in a row. The second one is Green Day. But I can't not listen to John Williams at least once a day. Like today, I was listening to the Return of the Jedi soundtrack, and it makes me well up. Other composers that I really like, or other film composers that I really like, are Jerry Goldsmith, James Horner. The 3 scores that he did back to back in the 1980s, early 80s, like Battle Beyond the Stars, Krull, and Star Trek: Wrath of Khan, are just phenomenal pieces of work. But then there's Ennio Morricone, absolutely stunning composer, who his music for like Once Upon a Time in America is just mind-blowingly good. The Mission's fantastic. The music that he did for the Sergio Leone spaghetti westerns, like A Fistful of Dollars, A Few Dollars More, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, is phenomenal. Even his score, and this is one of my personal favourite scores of his score for Brian De Palma's Mission to Mars, it's outstanding. Like the final note. I don't know if I've said this before on one of the videos, but there's a piece of music on the soundtrack or in the film. It's titled Where. It's just WHERE ? And it's kind of like the last track of the film, and it's just it elevates the film above a critical response that it had. So having like a soundtrack by Ennio Morricone that is just far and above better than the actual film, even though I adore Mission to Mars, I think it's a fucking fantastic movie, and I think it got unfairly bashed when it came out because it came out at the same time as Red Planet. But film music for me that's my safe space. I love film music, and I'll continue to love film music. And so music would probably be my my next big thing after. If physical media movies didn't exist, again, another one would probably be after that would probably be video games. I play a lot of video games. I've just finished playing the campaign for Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, the new one, which was pretty good. It was alright. Horizon Forbidden West is one of my favourite games of all time. Forbidden Dawn's pretty good. What else is there? I love the Uncharted games. I love Titanfall 2 is one of my favourite games of all time. So yeah, video games are a big thing for me as well. Unfortunately, last year I played more video games than I watched movies, and that seems to be the trend this year as well. I know we're only into February, but I think I've only watched like 2 films this year, which is weird. I went through a phase of tracking how many films I watched on Letterboxd, and one year I think I watched like 418 films, which is crazy because I haven't watched that many films in such a long time. So yeah, to answer your question at Mozzie7987, music is the next best form of media for me. Then we've got some questions from at Ridley Cinema. He's asked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. What's the scariest movie I own? I don't tend to get scared by movies anymore. I haven't for a long, long time. I think that's when you're a horror movie fan, you become desensitized to like horrific images because you watch so much horror movie, so many horror movies and films that depict violence and atmosphere and stuff that you become desensitized to it. So, out of the collection that I've got, I'd say probably the scariest films for a general audience would be Robert Wise's original The Haunting, which is one of the most creepy atmospheric movies I've ever seen, and probably The Exorcist. I know it was made in 1974. It's a long time since it came out. Surely it can't be that frightening, and it still has a definite creepiness to it. But as for the scariest film I own, I'm not scared by movies. I don't get scared by movies. There's one movie that has made me flinch and kind of be like, "Ooh, that's a bit gross," and that was High Tension, or as it was released in the UK when it first came out, because I think it's been released by Second Sight in the UK now as High Tension. But when it was released on DVD in the UK, it was under the title of Switchblade Romance, which I don't understand why it was called Switchblade Romance. It's a bit of a weird title. But Alexander Aja's great French sort of new wave of horror classic, psychological gore fest slasher movie. It's a weird one to categorize, but that was the one that made me go, ooh, shiver. I've seen some fucked up shit. Everyone's seen some fucked up shit. I've watched guinea pig movies. If you get into your head that the guinea I can't even speak. The guinea pig movies are just special effects, then it's just not. It's not frightening. Same with like Audition. Audition's more atmospherically creepy than it is frightening, and what else is there? Another film that's really fucked up and disturbing and could technically be classed as a horror film is a Serbian film. Now, I've seen a Serbian film more times than I care to even think about, and the reason is not out of enjoyment, but on an old podcast that I did a couple of years back, we went in depth into the film because it was when the film came out, and all the controversy with the Fright Fest pulling the movie from screening because of the paedophilia or whatever it was that was in it. We spoke to the directors, we interviewed them and everything. I don't care for the film anymore, and my friend Tim is still obsessed with that film. I don't know why, but different strokes for different folks, I guess. So what's the scariest movie that I own? Probably the original Haunting or The Exorcist. Earliest memory of being at the cinema. Earliest memory I have of being at the cinema would probably be seeing Disney's Oliver and Company. I don't know why I remember it. It was, 1988 I think that film came out. I would have been 5, I guess, or 4? No, I would have been 5. Yeah, I don't know why I remember it, but I vividly remember seeing it. There was a cinema just down the road from us called it was called the Monroe. It's a live music venue now called the Globe. And we watched everything in the Monroe, everything from Independence Day and Titanic to Jurassic Park, Twister, Lost in Space, 101 Dalmatians, the live action version, Mission Impossible 1. We watched so many films. We even saw Spice World, the movie. God knows why. Spent a lot of time in there as a kid. But the earliest memory I have of seeing of the cinema is Disney's Oliver and Company. First R-rated movie. So the first R-rated movie I watched at home compared to the first R-rated movie that I watched in the cinema. Now, R-rating is a bit different in the UK because I know in America, R-rating is essentially anything. Well, it's the American equivalent of a 15, I guess, and then they have the NC-17, which is the American equivalent of an 18. So, if we're going with an R-rating example in the UK, it would be a 15. So, I'd say the first R-rating I saw in the cinema was probably American Pie 2. I didn't really go and watch a lot of stuff in the cinema when I got into my teens because I just didn't have time with school and everything. I was hanging out with people, skateboarding, and just, going to the cinema wasn't a priority in my late teens, well, my mid-teens, I guess. But American Pie 2 is the one that stands out as the first R-rated movie that I watched in the cinema. Now, the first R-rated movie I watched at home, which technically would be classed as an NC-17, I guess now, is The Rookie, because I think it was an 18 back in the day. I know the BBFC changes age ratings all the time. I mean, for fuck's sake, Evil Dead 2 is a 15 certificate now. When I first saw that, I was an 18. So it's kind of madness to think that these films that we naughtily watched when we were kids, have now changed. So I don't know if is the Evil Dead. Where's my Evil Dead steelbook? I think it's down here. Yeah, I don't know if the first Evil Dead is still an 18. Yeah, so when Sony released the first Evil Dead, it came out and it was still an 18 certificate. I don't know why, because it's all stop motion gore. Probably because of the tree rape, I guess. But so the first R-rated film that I remember watching at home would have been The Rookie, the Clint Eastwood Charlie Sheen film. Another film I kind of watched around the same time. Well, it was two films I watched around the same time because I watched them all on a really old, probably like that big screen. It was tiny. It was an old black and white TV that my parents had, and they set it up in my bedroom with my brother, and he would be asleep and I would watch TV with the volume down. But the other two that I remember seeing for the first time, well, with technically R-rated movies, would be Tremors, which I fucking love. Tremors, I think it's amazing. And another film which I think is absolutely fucking amazing is the original Mad Max movie. I watched that. There was ITV in the UK had a special sort of centenary night for celebrating I think it's the centenary or the centenary of Australia. So they had all these Aussie films on. So I think they had, apart from Mad Max, they had Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, and maybe Strictly Ballroom. I can't remember. But this would have been like early 90s. I would have been like 9 or 10. I can't really remember. But I vividly remember watching the first Mad Max movie on this shitty little black and white TV movie on TV on a Saturday night while my parents were downstairs playing cards with family friends. Have I ever walked out of a movie? No. I have never walked out of a movie. For the simple fact, I've paid money to go and see a movie. If the movie's shit, I'm not going to walk out. I'm still going to watch it. That's a waste of money otherwise. First movie to make me cry. Movies don't make me cry. There's one movie that has made me choke up, but I've never actually cried. And that film is David Lynch's The Elephant Man, I think. Along with a lot of other people, The Elephant Man is the film that almost broke them. Movie I can recite verbatim, From Dusk Till Dawn. I know that movie inside out, back to front, and I can quote it. Maybe even Basketball. Basketball is a film that I quote daily, and same as Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead, actually. But I say From Dusk Till Dawn is the one film that I can probably quote verbatim. Most money spent on a single movie. I don't really spend much money on movies. I'm not really into the whole like £65 for a Criterion movie. I know it's not £65, it's just an example. I don't spend a lot of money on movies. I have a lot of movies, but most of these are all bought in either sales or have been given to me as Christmas presents. So the most expensive ones I've probably got are Dawn of the Dead, The Complete Sartana, Flight of the Navigator, Waterworld, and Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves are probably the most expensive ones because they're the collector's editions. A movie I could never watch again. That's an easy one. It's a film starring Amber Heard. It's called All the Boys Love Mandy Lane. It's fucking awful. Childhood celebrity crush. Now, I was born in 1983, which means as a teenager, it was in the 90s. And a big thing in the 90s was Baywatch. So a big crush of mine, and I think a lot of people at the same age as me at the same time would say Pamela Anderson was the big crush of their teens. She was blonde hair, big boobs. It was the quintessential like mid-90s porn star look. I don't know why I found that attractive. I do not find her attractive now. But there's actresses that I have found as an adult that I watched in films in the 90s that I've watched now that I'm just like, holy crap, that woman is ridiculously attractive. One that comes to mind is Madeleine Stowe. Holy crap. Madeleine Stowe is a very good looking woman. Also, Julianne Moore. Julianne Moore is very good looking. She's still pretty damn good now, but in like Boogie Nights, stunning. Thank you, Ridley Cinema. At Brian Smith LJ649, he posted a question, but I'm not going to answer the question in this video because because I want to do a whole video on this subject. He asked about my experiences of the rental days, video rental days, and the good experiences and the bad experiences. And as I worked for a video rental company for 10 years, I've not only got the memories from when I was a child going to a video shop, but I've also got memories as an adult working at a video shop. So then at Mr. Up the Irons asks what my favourite horror movie of all time is. That is Dawn of the Dead. George Romero's 1978 Dawn of the Dead. Fucking love that movie. What's my favourite horror franchise? There are horror franchises that I've seen, that I own, that I'm not massively a fan of. Or like, I've got all the Friday the 13th movies on DVD. I'm not going to buy them on Blu-ray because I don't really care for them. Friday the 13th Part 1's pretty good. But the best one, personally, is Friday the 13th Part 6. Jason Lives. I also have a very, very small soft spot for Jason Takes Manhattan because that film's fucking shit, but also very, very funny. I do like the Nightmare on Elm Street series. Again, like Friday the 13th, the majority of them are just copy and paste of the previous films. The standouts for those would be the first Nightmare on Elm Street, the Dream Warriors. Is that the fourth or third? The one with Patricia Arquette in the Mental Institute, and Wes Craven's New Nightmare. But I'd say my favourite horror franchise would probably be Romero's zombie movies, the Dead saga. So Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Land of the Dead, Diary of the Dead, and Survival of the Dead. Maybe not so much the last two, but obviously Night of the Living Dead is a fantastic movie. Dawn of the Dead is my favourite horror movie of all time. I love Day of the Dead, and I love Land of the Dead. So yeah, that's probably my favourite franchise. Second to that would be the Evil Dead franchise. And I'm not talking about the remakes and Evil Dead Rise. I'm talking about the Sam Raimi directed and Bruce Campbell starring Evil Dead movies. So the first Evil Dead, Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, and then Ash versus the Evil Dead. Because I like to put them all together. I'd say Ash versus the Evil Dead is essentially Evil Dead 4, 5, and 6. Mikey Ryan says, what is a film that the majority of people love that I hate? I don't tend to hate movies. There are movies that I dislike, but I don't hate them. And there are movies that I've not really been a fan of that I've gradually become more tolerant of, I guess. One film, because I don't buy into the hype. I learned a long time ago not to buy into the hype of movies. The last time I bought into the hype, it actually did pay off. It was Mad Max Fury Road. But the majority of films, when there's a trailer that's coming out, I think what really killed it was in 2015 when the trailer for Star Wars Force Awakens came out, and it was like just a phenomenal trailer, and it just felt like Star Wars. And then you watch the film, and it's like, what the fuck was that? It's just A New Hope, but with shiny new cameras. So yeah, I just don't buy into the hype anymore. But there are films that everybody loves that I kind of just thought was meh or just really didn't get on with. That would be probably It Follows, the horror film starring Michael Monroe, which is about sexually transmitted spooky ghosts, I guess, as you could probably say. I'm not a fan of Wes Anderson either. I don't really like Wes Anderson's movies. I don't get the appeal of the... I don't know what it is. I think it's very hipster. It's very much up his own arse, and I just don't really care for them. Then we have a question from @LP7399. Will you upgrade to a 4K OLED TV? Short answer, no. Long answer, not yet. I originally was going to upgrade my TV this month. In January, actually. But obviously, due to unforeseen circumstances with my mother passing away and us now having to move at some point, sell my house and move at some point this year, my TV, my 42 inch full HD 1080p TV is fine for now. What I was originally going to do is I was going to upgrade my TV to a 50-inch 4K smart TV, and my mum was going to have my 42-inch 1080p in her bedroom, but obviously that's not happening now. No, I won't be upgrading to a 4K OLED TV at the moment. And from the final question, and this is from Johnny Carrot Heat, the winner of the giveaway. I left this question to last because this is going to be more of an in-depth answer. How will the movie market turn out in the long term, short term? Will cinema survive? Will physical media survive? Will streaming survive? And will streaming condense into one or two, or will it implode? So what do I see the movie market turn out in the long term, short term? Well, cinema's in a weird place at the moment. Let me have a drink. Cinema's in a very weird, odd place. It's primarily overstuffed, underwritten, and overproduced superhero sort of mega bucks studio movies, which has been the norm for maybe the last 15 years or so. When did Iron Man come out? 2008, I think it was. So since 2008, for the last 14 years, is it 14 or 16 years? Yeah, the last 16 years or so, the cinema's been dominated by high budget, underwritten, underdeveloped event movies, which is fair. But Hollywood is going through the same thing that happened in the 1930s, the 1940s, the 1950s, the 1960s, the 1970s, the 1980s, the 1990s, and the early 2000s, and the 2000s, which is a specific type of film is going to be the popular thing until that film becomes less popular. So at the moment, it's superheroes and franchises and this, that, and the other, where a studio will take an IP and they will make something out of it. Like Five Nights at Freddy's didn't need a movie, but we got one. Why? Because it's an IP that people know. Star Wars, 3 movies that sucked and 2 that were pretty good. Then you've got all the Marvel movies, you've got DC. They're all IPs that people are familiar with, which means you make a product with that IP that people know and is popular with a certain demographic of people. That demographic of people will then go and watch that movie, and which is why these movies are making over billions and billions of dollars. But in the 1930s and 1940s and 1950s, you had musicals, film noir, and westerns. These were the dominant 3 genres. So the earlier 1930s stuff, like the black and white Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers type of movies, the Rodgers and Hammerstein stuff in the 1950s and 1960s, and then like the westerns. So westerns started way earlier. Like I think wasn't the first movie ever made was the Train Robbery, which was just a train, or the train ride, which was just a train coming towards a screen, and people were freaking out because it was like, oh my god, it's going to crash into us. So westerns have always been there. So when you really think about westerns as a genre, it's basically the genre that created film. Yes, you had like it was George Méliès's Trip to the Moon, which is more science fiction, I guess, but that's more of a short film. When it comes to feature films, westerns were primarily the number one genre. You had stars like Randolph Scott and Stuart Granger. Maybe Stuart Granger was a bit later, but like Randolph Scott and John Wayne. These are the big names. These are the stars of the westerns. But then you had these big name directors as well. So you'd have people like John Ford, who would make like stuff like The Searchers, and then you'd have the Butcher brothers, who also made fantastic westerns around the same period of time. So westerns were the big thing. They were action, they were adventure, they were romance, and in the case of Calamity Jane, they were also musicals. But then you also had the musical section. So you had like the 1930s and 1940s musicals. You had like Top Hat and Singing in the Rain and South Pacific and what else was there? Like Oklahoma. These were the big studio films at the time, which is exactly what's happening in Hollywood at the moment. They found a genre that people want to see, and it makes money, which is why superheroes and franchises are the big things at the moment. But they'll die out, the same as the musical did, the same as the western did, the same as film noir did. Hollywood goes in cycles, and it just so happens that the cycle we're on at the moment is the big Hollywood blockbuster. But last year is a very, very surprising year for cinema, because while yes, you did have one big IP movie, which was probably the biggest film of the year, which was Barbie. It was made in a way that was different. So it was kind of the way to explain how Barbie was made is to like take Guardians of the Galaxy, which was an IP based on a Marvel comic book, written and directed by James Gunn. Now, James Gunn subverted the sort of expectation of Marvel fans by making what was essentially a straight-up sci-fi comedy, which worked, which is why it was fucking amazing. Barbie did the same thing, although Barbie went for a more meta approach to the product. I mean, Barbie's been released in CGI movies since I was working in Blockbuster. So there's always been Barbie movies, but there's not been a live-action Barbie movie. And the only way to really make a live-action Barbie movie is to subvert the expectation and to essentially parody the product in a more meta way, I guess, which is why I think people responded to it as much as they did. But also, we have to look at films that also came out in 2023 that were far and away completely different to what the previous years have had. Yes, we had the Drex, we had like the shit movies, we had Aquaman, Kingdom of Fishes, or whatever the fuck it's called. Then there's crap on Netflix that were fucking pumped to us as like these big things. Like Rebel Moon was fucking trash, and I will probably not going to rewatch the second one either. But then this, like, we're going back now to the time where films were being made, not movies, films. Marvel is a movie. Oppenheimer is a film because it's based on a book, but the book is a true life story of one of the defining moments in 20th century history, in one of the defining moments in the history of history, which was the creation and the deployment of the first atomic bomb on the Japanese in 1945. That's a 3.5-hour movie. Like, next, after that 3.5-hour movie, was another 3.5-hour movie, which was Killers of the Flower Moon by Martin Scorsese, which, again, made a fuck ton of money because the name attached to it, which is fucking madness that 4 years ago, Martin Scorsese couldn't get a single studio to pony up any money to make The Irishman, apart from Netflix. And now The Irishman is an award winner, has award nominations. It's on the fucking Criterion Collection, but it's a Netflix movie because Netflix were the only ones who would pay Martin Scorsese to make The Irishman. Now, Killers of the Flower Moon, it was in the cinemas, and it's now on Apple TV because Apple ponied up the cash. Now, if more streaming services, like the big boys, like Apple, like Netflix, and Disney, decided to put more cash into original films and then release them to a wider audience, then I think cinema is going to survive. I don't think cinema is ever going to die. But like I said, cinema goes in cycles. So we had, in the 1930s, 1940s, 1950s, we had the westerns, the musicals, and film noir. And then in the 1970s, we had the new wave of cinema. So you had more independent stuff and more adult-oriented movies, like Easy Rider and the Godfather movies. And you had Star Wars and Jaws, Close Encounters, like these sort of, maybe not Jaws and Close Encounters and Star Wars, because Star Wars is still the highest, I think it's the most profitable independent film of all time. Even though it was released or distributed by 20th Century Fox, it was made by the Ladd Company, I think it was, Alan Ladd put the money up for it. But because of the drama that George Lucas had to go through to get that film made, he decided that he was going to finance the Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi independently, which is a very, very good idea when you can afford it. And at the time, after the gangbusters money that Star Wars A New Hope made in 1977, he was able to afford that. Now, if the studios are more concerned with making money than telling stories, then that's what's going to kill them, because people are going to get sick of seeing the same formula over and over again. We can see it happening now with the Marvel movies. They are still using the same formula, and they are making shitter movies. Like the last 3 or 4 Marvel movies have been absolute ass. Disney need to basically look at the studios that they own, like Marvel and Lucasfilm, and be like, you know what, instead of rushing out a movie and trying to put some sort of political agenda or make it more diverse or this, that and the other. Just tell a fucking story. Have a plan. If you're going to have a plan, make sure you stick to the plan. J.J. Abrams, I like J.J. Abrams. He created Lost. He made the Star Trek movies, which were really good. And he made Alias. And he made Super 8. Super 8's fucking awesome. He set out with Force Awakens to make something. Even though, yes, it did follow a specific sort of plot line, the same sort of plot as A New Hope. But it was co-written with him and Lawrence Kasdan. So Lawrence Kasdan, obviously being the writer of Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, he had first knowledge of how a Star Wars film was written. So he took a safe route, but they introduced certain things that the second film should have followed up on. But Rian Johnson was allowed to do whatever he wanted because Lucasfilm did not have a plan of what they wanted the 3 films to be. So yes, I think if studios take more chances on non-IP films, I mean, you could make a movie for $325 million, and that movie will obviously make a lot more back. But then you take that $325 million and you split that across 5 or 6 smaller movies, smaller original movies, but promote them with the amount of money that you've got, you still make a lot of money. You won't make $1 billion off one film, but you might make $1 billion off 5 smaller movies. The business model's a bit fucked when it comes to Hollywood, but yeah, I mean, cinema's never going to die. It's always going to survive. There's always going to be movies. And like I said, it's in a cycle. We're currently on the superhero cycle. Whatever will be next, we don't know. But cinema will always survive. Will physical media survive? Yes. Yes, it will. Like I said in one of the previous videos, physical media, DVDs and Blu-rays, is now no longer a consumer market. It is a niche market. It is a collector's market. And the people who are buying the Blu-rays that are released now, which are like the collector's editions like this, specifically, like, we call them boutique labels, but they're no longer boutique. They are mainstream, but they are mainstream to a select audience. So Arrow is the main Blu-ray label in the UK now. Because no studios they barely release anything, and if they do, they release them bare bones and still charge 15, 16 quid for them. But if you get an Arrow release, it's like $17.99, and it's a brand new like 2K or 4K restoration, and it's got a fuck ton of special features on it, why wouldn't you buy it instead of buying like a studio release? Now, I've got the Arrow release of The Thing, which is a fantastic release. It looks better, but I've still also got the Universal release of The Thing. Why? Because why not? So physical media will survive. Again, it's all to do with the audience at the time. So is it feasible for studios to release movies on Blu-ray when they can just license out the rights to a boutique label who will then do all the work and they'll still take a profit anyway? Because why release stuff when they can do that? I mean, MGM have done it, Universal have done it. I think Warner Brothers has done a couple, but Warner Brothers need to get their fucking act together. So yeah, I mean, there's also these indie labels as well. So most of the stuff that were made by these independent production houses in the 1980s and 1990s are now seeing special edition releases of their movies because they were distributed by a studio. So it was most specifically, like MGM is probably the big one because they have a huge back catalogue or vault of movies. So physical media will it'll survive. It'll go in. It, like I said, it's not a consumer market anymore. It's a collector's market, which is why it will survive. It'll do the same thing as well. It's in the same place as vinyl now, but obviously vinyl's a lot older. CDs, I reckon, will make a comeback. But again, like cinema, it's a cycle. It's a cycle. Physical media is not dead. Streaming, for all the good that it does for TV shows and the convenience, it's never going to beat a library, if you know what I mean. It's never going to, like 90% of the stuff that is on these shelves is not available on streaming because of licensing and rights holding, which is why Netflix in America or Netflix in fucking Germany or Netflix in Australia has completely different films to Netflix in the UK because of distribution rights and stuff. So having a physical collection beats out streaming, but streaming won't die because of the sheer convenience of it, which is another one of the questions from Johnny Carrot, which is, will streaming survive? Yes, it will. Another, will streaming condense into one or two like services, or will it implode? No, I don't think it will. I don't think it'll merge. For the simple fact is that there's so much competition now, and there's so much money that it would be pointless. If you think back to before Disney Plus, there was two. There was Netflix and there was Prime. Prime is a write-off because, let's face it, you pay for Prime, but you still have to pay for everything else on top. There's only a few select movies, but then you've got MGM on demand. You've got, what is it, MGM Plus? Then you've got Lionsgate Plus. Then you've got Paramount Plus, and then you've got fucking, what else is there? There's a whole host of them. There's Tubi, there's fucking Hulu, HBO, Disney. There's so many. I think what needs to happen is the streaming services that are owned by certain companies that own multiple different ones should condense. So Warner Brothers need to have a Warner Brothers streaming service, which has all the DC and all the HBO stuff in there. They need to get rid of David Zaslav because he's completely destroying that company. They need to separate from Discovery, because no one wants to say Warner Brothers Discovery or Warner Discovery because it's weird and doesn't fit right. Warner Brothers is a film studio. Discovery is a is a documentary channel. That's it. So I don't think they will condense into one or two big streaming platforms, but I think the studios that own multiple different streaming services should condense them all down into one, because if you're paying for, say, if you're paying for Disney Plus, but then you're also paying for Hulu, then you need your head seen to. But I think Disney Plus and Hulu are the same as Disney and Star in the UK, which is what is basically the whole the catalogue of 20th Century Fox. So no, I don't think that studios are. Well, I don't think the streaming services are going to condense. What I think will happen is that they will find that viewing is going down and down and down and down, and gradually streaming services will close, and you will be back to like a main 4 or 5 streaming services. I don't think we're going to have, in the long run, I don't think we're going to have like 30, 40 different streaming services, because it's just it's not feasible with rights, and then people are going to be like, oh well, I've watched everything on Paramount, I've watched everything on Prime, what else can I watch? Well, like, I've run out of things to watch. Not if you had a physical media collection. But no, it's I don't think streaming's going to condense. I don't think it's going to die, but I think it's going to like plateau, and it's going to be equal between physical and streaming. And I think more streaming platforms need to start releasing stuff on physical media, because I'm sick and fucking tired of seeing people on YouTube showing off bootleg copies of stuff that is readily available on streaming services. Stop giving people your money for fake bootleg fucking movies and TV shows, because it's fucking illegal and it's ruining cinema and it's ruining TV. So stop it. Stop paying people to give you stuff that is readily available on streaming because you need to have it in your fucking collection. Grow the fuck up. But yeah, that's it. That is my Q&A for the day. The 1K Q&A. Sorry, I got a little bit ranty at the end there, but I really, really despise people who buy bootlegs. But thank you all for tuning in, watching, subscribing, commenting, and come and join us on the community tab. And peace. I'm out. Thanks a lot.